The corridor is dark, 40 feet long, concrete walls, no windows, a single overhead light buzzing at the far end, a tense, oppressive place. The K9 moves in quietly, no pulling, no excitement, controlled, measured forward motion, his nose sweeping the air slowly like a radar. Then he stops, and he looks at something, as if he's taking an X-ray of the place. Not the door at the end of the hall, not the handler behind him, not the shadows or the stairwell. He looks at a wall, a blank, empty, featureless wall. And he doesn't look away. The handler sees it. He doesn't move, doesn't speak, because he has worked with this dog for 4 years, and he knows exactly what that stare means. If his canine companion is looking at that wall this way, there is a reason for it. He reaches for his radio.
What did our canine companion see? Nothing. That's the first answer most people would give. There was nothing on that wall. No movement, no visible threat, no obvious reason for a highly trained animal to stop and lock his gaze onto empty concrete. For those whose senses are closed off, what is said to contain nothing is in fact a place full of details only our canine companion can detect. But this specific behavior is one of the most studied and most misunderstood signals in canine dog deployment. The stare, a trained canine's sustained, unblinking, locked gaze, is not curiosity, not distraction. It always has a reason behind it. It is communication of the highest precision. Experienced canine dog trainers have described it as receiving a written report from inside the dog's mind. So the question isn't what the dog was staring at. The question is what the dog already knew and how long it knew it before anyone else in that corridor had any idea.
Most people who encounter a watching, examining canine dog do one of two things. They stare back instinctively, the way humans respond to direct eye contact. Or they dismiss it entirely, just the dog being weird, just the dog zoning out. Neither is close to accurate. In everyday civilian life, a dog that fixes its gaze on an empty space gets called anxious, poorly trained. Someone might wave a hand in front of its face. Someone might pull the leash and say, "Let's go." This is the wrong interpretation, and it isn't a small mistake. Because what looks like a distracted dog staring at nothing is, in most working contexts, the opposite of distraction. It is the deepest form of attention these animals can produce. Every system in that dog's body has narrowed to a single point in the environment. The gaze is just the visible surface of something happening much deeper. Civilian observers see the stillness and interpret absence. Canine trainers see the stillness and read presence. And in truth, it isn't just canine dogs. As humans, we generally fail to understand the behavior of animals at all. One group sees a dog doing nothing. The other group sees a dog doing everything. Processing, confirming, measuring, reporting, all through the sustained geometry of where his eyes are pointed. Their perceptions and senses are things we can never possess. In an operational setting, that gap in interpretation is not abstract. It is the difference between walking into something and knowing what's already there.
What canine trainers learn early, and what civilians take a long time to understand, is that the dog's gaze is never about the surface it's pointed at. The wall doesn't matter. The door doesn't matter. What matters is what the dog's sensory system has already confirmed beyond that surface. The eyes are the compass needle. They point at the origin. There is a great difference, my friends, between looking and seeing. Experienced canine trainers often describe the sustained lock as a targeting behavior the dog was never explicitly taught. It emerges naturally from the intersection of deep olfactory detection and the animal's inherited predator focus. When a canine dog confirms a significant scent source or detects a sound outside human range, many trainers observe that the gaze automatically anchors to the most precise location the stimulus appears to be coming from. The stare is not seeing, it is pointing. And it often appears before any formal trained alert, before the sit, before the scratch, before the bark. The gaze comes first, sometimes by several seconds, sometimes longer. Canine trainers who learn to read it gain time, and in field work, time is not abstract. Time is the distance between controlled and uncontrolled. The sustained gaze in a working dog carries a quality canine trainers describe as locked. Not scanning, not the casual awareness a dog shows when curious. Locked means the target has been confirmed internally. The dog isn't still searching, the dog has already finished. The stare is the announcement. It is the revelation of a presence hiding beyond the unknown.
To understand what produces that stare, you have to understand how differently this animal's sensory architecture is built. Start with hearing. A dog's auditory range extends far beyond the human threshold, detecting frequencies humans cannot perceive at all. But canine trainers emphasize directionality above range. Dogs can rotate their outer ear independently, triangulating a sound source with inch-level precision without any full-body movement. In a dark corridor, a canine can detect the micro-vibration of a foot adjusting weight, the friction of fabric against a surface, breath being controlled, and locate its origin to within inches. The ears follow the ears. Then the nose confirms what both found. The dog's olfactory system doesn't just detect presence, it builds a picture. Research suggests working dogs can construct something close to a spatial scent map of an environment, distinguishing between what passed through recently and what is actively presently there. Scent concentration tells the dog not just what is in a space, but how close it is and whether it's moving or still. When hearing, scent, and sight arrive at the same conclusion simultaneously, the dog doesn't need to search anymore. The triangulation is complete. The body goes still. The gaze locks because there is nothing left to find. Think about what that blank wall in the corridor actually represented. Behind it, the dog's hearing had isolated a sound. The nose had confirmed an active sense signature. The gaze had anchored at the most precise location the stimulus was originating from. The wall wasn't the subject. It was just the nearest surface between the dog and what the dog had already mapped. The handler reached for his radio not because he saw a threat. He reached because he saw the dog see a threat. 4 years of working together had taught him that this specific stare, sustained, motionless, with that particular tension in the dog's neck and shoulders, was not exploratory. It was conclusive. There is another dimension to the gaze that goes unexamined. The emotional content. Canine dogs are not machines. When a trained canine makes eye contact with a human, it is deliberate. Dogs in working contexts look at their canine trainer when they need confirmation. They look away when processing independently, and they hold a specific gaze, sustained, direct, weighted, when transferring information they cannot express any other way. Many canine trainers describe the moment their dog turned from the threat and looked directly at them as one of the most communicatively dense moments in their professional experience. Not asking for permission, not uncertain, informing. There is a difference between a dog looking for guidance and a dog delivering a report. An experienced canine trainer recognizes that difference instantly. When the canine in that corridor finally turned from the wall and looked back at its trainer, the canine trainer understood everything. Location, confidence, proximity, whether to hold or move. All of it in a single 4-second gaze. No words, no bark, no formal alert. Just eyes carrying everything that needed to be said.
Canine dogs and trainers across different deployment contexts describe variations of this same moment consistently. The environment changes, a warehouse, an open field, a building cleared floor by floor, but the behavioral signature stays identical. The locations may change, but the perceptions and senses always work. The team is moving, the dog is working. Then, without any trigger the humans can identify, the gaze locks. And nothing in that dog's posture suggests confusion. Everything suggests certainty. In training contexts, the canine trainer reports that the lock gaze behavior preceded a find by anywhere from 10 seconds to several minutes. The dog had reached the conclusion long before the tactical situation caught up. And now, that early freeze in the corridor carries new weight. That wall the dog stared at. The canine trainer didn't look at the wall. He looked at the dog's neck, the set of the shoulders, the stillness in the hindquarters. He read the dog the way the dog was reading the room. Because he knows the meaning of his canine companion's every movement, he can clearly understand what his canine companion is communicating. What he read told him the threat wasn't ahead. It was to the right, behind the wall, stationary. The dog had known 40 seconds before the radio call.
There is a version of this story where the canine is the tool and the handler is the expert, where the human leads and the dog contributes biological capability within a clear hierarchy. That version is incomplete. What these animals do in corridors, in fields, in the invisible geometry of air and sound and scent, is not assistance. It is parallel intelligence operating on a different substrate. The dog does not perceive a simplified version of the world. It perceives a more complete version than any human in that space can access, then translates it into the only shared language available at the intersection of two species: body, direction, gaze, and silence. That stare at the blank wall was not a glitch. It was a sentence, a declaration delivered with precision no electronic instrument could have replicated, offered freely by an animal that had processed the entire environment in the time it took the humans to walk 40 feet. When a working canine dog locks eyes and won't look away, it is not performing. It is not waiting to be told what to do. It has finished the work. It is waiting for everyone else to catch up. And they always do. 30 seconds later, a minute later, they always arrive at the conclusion the dog reached quietly, alone, somewhere in the dark ahead of them. That blank wall, 4 seconds of locked gaze, 40 seconds before the radio call, the dog already knew. It always does.
This channel exists to decode what working dogs are actually doing, beneath the training, beneath the commands, in the silence before anyone else in the room understands what's happening. If that's the kind of depth you have been looking for, subscribe now. The next video on this channel is already waiting for you. Subscribe and become our companion on this extraordinary journey, because the next video begins exactly where this one ends. If there is something specific you are curious about, write it in the comments. Your request will be taken into consideration.